Hi, I'm Juan with the Home Depot, here to show you how to build stair stringers. A stair stringer is a long piece of notched timber that supports the weight of the steps and keeps the structure solid. This is an intermediate level job and should take less than half a day to finish. The main material for this job will be 2 by 12 inch boards. Anything narrower than 2 by 12 won't leave enough width to carry the load of the stairs after the stringers are cut. The number of stringers you need will depend on the width of your staircase. Now, the International Residential Code states a 36-inch minimum width, which includes the thickness of the handrail for a typical interior staircase. Of course, there are exceptions, but for simplicity, we'll go with a standard 36 inches, which requires 3 stringers. Now, because these boards will be weight-bearing, try to find the straightest possible number with the fewest knots. The length of the 2 by 12 that you'll need will depend on your overall stair measurements, which we'll get to shortly. You'll also need a tape measure, a framing square, stair gauges, a pencil, a circular saw, and a handsaw. And don't forget your PPE, especially eye protection. Now, wherever your stairs are located, they'll need a flat, solid base to serve as the landing at the bottom. You'll also need accurate measurements so that you can determine the length of the 2 by 12s that you'll need, calculate the exact cost of materials and supplies, and provide a final quote for your customer. Now, if you're in the framing stage of construction, be sure to factor in the thickness of your final flooring when you're measuring and cutting your 2 by 12s. If you don't, the bottom step of your staircase will be too tall and not code compliant. I'll show you how to factor in that final flooring measurement when we get to the cutting stage. First, we'll measure the rise of the staircase, which is the vertical distance from the top floor to the bottom floor. For this example, we have 85 inches. Next, determine the total number of stairs by dividing the rise by the estimated height of the stair risers. We'll figure out the exact riser height once we know how many stairs are going in. To meet code, stair risers should measure between 7 and 7 3/4 inches maximum. So we'll estimate the riser height at 7 3/4 inches. Okay, now divide the total rise, 85, by our estimated riser height, 7 3/4 inches, to get 10.96. If you get an uneven number, round up to the nearest whole number, which give us 11. So now we know that we're cutting notches for 11 steps on our stringer. Now, we'll calculate the exact height of each stair riser by dividing our total rise, 85 inches, by our total number of steps, 11, to give us an exact riser height of 7 3/4. We now have the numbers we need to determine the total run of the staircase, which is how far the bottom of the staircase extends from the wall. We'll do this by multiplying the number of stairs by the depth of the finished treads, which building codes require to be at least 10 inches deep. 11 multiplied by 10 inches of tread depth give us a total run of 110 inches. And finally, let's calculate the total length of our stringer board. A general rule is to assume 14 inches of stringer length per step. Our stringer has 11 steps, so we'll multiply that by 14 to get a total length of 154 for our 2 by 12s. Now, let's mark our tread rise and run measurements using a framing square. Save time by using a set of stair gauges to mark the measurement of each arm of the framing square. Beginning a few inches from the end of the board, line up the 2 measurements you marked on your framing square to the edge of the board and use a pencil to trace around the outside of the framing square. Mark the remaining stringer notches, starting at the same point where the previous notch ended. When you finish marking the steps, extend the final lowest tread line to the back edge of the board. This creates a straight edge where the stringer meets the floor. And this is where you'll need to factor in the thickness of your finished flooring. Alright, let's assume that our finished stair treads will be 1 inch thick. So we'll mark off a 1 inch thickness along the bottom of the lowest tread and trim that off when we do our cuts. This will ensure that our stringer fits and that our bottom step is the correct height. To cut our stringers, clamp the marked board onto sawhorses or a cutting surface. Use a circular saw to cut the notches along the pencil lines, leaving a 1/2 inch from the inner corners uncut so you don't overcut the lines. Overcutting the lines could create weak points in your stringers. Finish cutting the notches with a handsaw or reciprocating saw for a cleaner, more exact cut. After that, your stair stringer is ready to install. Thanks for joining me at the Home Depot. For more how-to content specifically created for pros like us, go to homedepot.com/pro-guides.